If you've ever watched a shoe review, I'm sure you've heard someone describe a foam as soft, firm, mushy, gushy, adaptive, responsive, energy return. All these terms, I'm sure that you have probably questioned, what exactly does that mean? How does that actually translate out on the road? What will I feel when I'm wearing this shoe? Today I'm going to explain exactly how I use those terms. I'm sure that other people have different ways to describe foams of similar nature, but I'm going to go through how I describe them. Let's get into it. First off, I'd like to thank Tim LaPorte for giving the video idea. He asked exactly that. What does a reviewer mean when they say a foam is soft, firm, squishy, gushy, mushy? All the above, what exactly do we mean? And I think that's a great question. But first, my name is Brendon, and if this is your first time on the channel, I upload videos multiple times a week, all about running, from running shoe reviews to training to everything in between. So if that's something you're into, hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. Now let's get into exactly what these terms mean. I have a list of 7 terms here that we're gonna go through. I'm gonna explain what I mean by a soft foam, a firm foam, a mushy foam, a responsive foam, a energy return foam, a flat foam, and an adaptive foam. So starting off with soft foam, so what I mean when I'm describing a foam as soft is when I'm out there running, the foam is compressing pretty easily, and I can even squish it in my hand. That's what I would consider a soft foam. So what are some examples of soft foams? Well, actually, the Nike Next would be a good example of a soft foam. I think the ZoomX Foam is very, very soft, but it also has some other properties that we'll get down to later in the video. Another example would be the Triumph 18 with the PWRRRUN Plus midsole foam. I find that this foam is extremely soft, actually. And another example of a soft foam would be the PWRRUNPB midsole foam. I find that when I'm out there, it's easily being compressed. I can compress it quite easily in my hand. And although I'm describing these foams as soft, it doesn't mean that they don't have other properties. For example, the ZoomX Foam and the PWRRUNPB midsole foam are very soft, but at the same time, I find them to have quite a bit of energy return, which we'll define later down the road. The point that I'm trying to get across there is that a foam can be both soft and responsive, both firm and energy return. These have crossovers. There's like a Venn diagram of shoe mushiness and foam density lingos. We'll have to do a separate video on that, because if I were going to do that here, this video will get quite complex and take a lot more time than I have. So moving on to firm midsoles. Now, if we say a soft midsole is one that can compress easily, a firm midsole is one that does not compress easily. It feels kind of hard under your foot. You're going along there, it's kind of slapping about. Really good for those tempo days and speedy days, or if you're doing a race day. But for me, I definitely prefer having a softer shoe for my daily use. There are people that prefer firm shoes, for sure. Now, what are some examples of firm midsoles? For me, the Light Strike midsole in the SL20 is a firm midsole. It's not easily compressed. Well, I guess in hand it is, but when I'm out there running, it definitely doesn't feel like it's very soft. It feels quite firm underfoot for me. Another example would be the Atreyu shoes. Now, this midsole is the definition of firm. There's no give to it at all. But when you're out there running with this shoe, it does tend to get a bit more soft as you're going along with it. But I think in the case of the Atreyus, it has a lot to do with the sock liner, but that's not the topic of today's video. Now, one more example of firm midsoles is the Hoka Rincon. Yes, the EVA density that they use in the Rincon is actually, I find, a little bit firm, but it lends itself quite well to doing those speedy up-tempo days in a Hoka shoe. Now, mushy shoes are ones that are soft, but they're way too soft, and it feels like when you're out there running, it's compressing, and then it's just staying compressed. Each step, you're not getting a whole lot of bounce back, the foam is compressing, you're almost sinking into the shoe. It feels like you're almost running through mud almost. That's the best way that I can describe a mushy shoe. It just doesn't feel very fast, that's for sure. But you know what? I actually do like mushy shoes for my easy days and recovery days because, guys, that foam is compressing and just cradling you and nurturing your sore legs. So there's nothing wrong with a mushy shoe. Now, some examples of mushy shoes would be the Clifton 7, absolutely. Yes, this foam is very, very soft, very, very mushy. Now, actually, looking at my collection here, I think that the Clifton 7 would be the only shoe that I have that I would describe as mushy. But some examples that I haven't actually owned, but I would assume would be like the Bondi 7 actually would be a mushy shoe as well. Because if the Clifton 7 is mushy and the Bondi 7 is meant to be the easy day shoe to the Clifton 7, that's just a whole lot of mush I'm not willing to deal with. Now moving on to responsive. Now, what I consider a responsive foam is one that compresses during your foot strike, but by the time you're going through your gait cycle, that foam's already pressed back up as fast as you're going through the gait cycle. So pretty much, guys, the foam's being compressed, you're moving towards the midfoot, the load is coming off of the heel, and by the time that the load is at the forefoot, this foam's already back to its non-compressed position. That's really confusing, and I'm sure you're gonna have questions, so make sure to leave comments down below. But I'm gonna repeat it again slowly. A responsive foam to me is when I'm going through my foot strike, the foam compresses, and by the time that I'm going through my gait cycle, the foam is back into its uncompressed position, ready to help you get to that next gait cycle transition. Obviously, because I picked up this shoe, I consider the Nike Next Percent to be a very responsive foam. This ZoomX foam is unbelievable. You compress it and it's already back to that position by the time, it's like instantaneous, honestly. And I think that's one of the great properties of Pebax-based midsoles. Now, because I said Pebax, we have to put the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro into this category as well as being responsive. So the same thing, when you compress this midsole on the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro, it snaps back to its initial uncompressed position very, very quickly. And that's what I call a responsive foam. Now, moving on to energy return, and this may also be defined as bouncy. Now, when I did my initial review of the Next Percent, I described it as a bouncy foam. And what that means is when you're putting load into this foam, it's bouncing you right back up. Seriously, when you put any type of load into this ZoomX foam right here, it's literally bouncing you towards that next step. The ZoomX foam, seriously guys, when you put any type of load into it, it's just bouncing you right back up. It's like boing, 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 boing. It's fantastic. And I don't have any other shoes that I would really describe as ultra energy return. Like the ZoomX foam is the creme de la creme for energy return. So yeah, so the ZoomX foam, when you put load on it, it's just bouncing you right back up. I don't know how else to explain it. It's literally like you're compressing it and then it's pushing you back up as fast as you can compress it. And that is what I would consider energy return. Now, another example would be the PWRRUNPB again. These two midsoles are quite similar, but different as well. The ZoomX midsole has a lot more energy return than the PWRRUNPB, I think. That's just my feeling so far. We have a lot more testing. Now, I actually am going to do a video comparing the Next Percent to the Endorphin Speed and the Endorphin Pro. So if that's something you're into, hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for it. Now, moving on to the next one, and that is a flat midsole. Now, a flat midsole is one that when you're going out there running, you just have major regrets that you even bought this shoe. It's not super mushy. It's not energy return. It's not firm. It just feels uninspiring and almost boring to run in. It potentially could even cause you a little bit of pain and discomfort. For me, a flat shoe is one that I almost have to return because I don't think I can bring myself to get to that 50-kilometer, 50-mile mark in this shoe to make sure it does get broken in. Now, there are some shoes that I have had a bit more patience with, such as the Atreyu shoe. Now, the Atreyu shoe, when I first put it on, I found it to be extremely flat. It wasn't really doing a whole lot for me. It wasn't really helping me get to the gait cycle. It wasn't really helping me with my easy days because it doesn't compress. It just felt very flat. However, the more time I spent in this shoe, the more it felt just like a firm shoe. And that's fine. A firm shoe is great for, like I said, for tempo days or even everyday runs. Like if you like those firm midsoles, you can definitely use them for everyday runs. That's not gonna hurt you. For me, I prefer the more soft side of things, but to each their own. So yes, when I describe a midsole as flat, it's one that I find extremely uninspiring. It's not helping me with my easy days. It's not helping me with my fast days. It's just a flat shoe that is going back. Now on to the last one, and that's adaptive. So an adaptive shoe is one that either starts out flat or really mushy and then transitions into a nice easy day shoe or one that you can use for tempo day shoes. Just it transitions from a shoe that you're really not sure about to one that you do like. And there are two big examples of that for me in my collection. Number 1 being the Clifton 7. Like I said, I didn't think that I would even use this shoe for anything except very easy and recovery days. However, the more time I spent in this shoe, it transitioned from a very mushy, almost gross feeling shoe to a shoe that I love wearing on all my daily runs. And yes, we have a full review coming up very soon for this shoe, but yes, this is a shoe that transitioned into a beautiful butterfly of a shoe. And our next butterfly shoe is the Atreyu Voyager again. Like I just said, although there's like a beetle in here, but it doesn't matter. This shoe did transition from one that I felt extremely uninspired about. It felt flat into a shoe that I look forward to using on my faster day runs because it does seem like a great tempo day shoe. It's a great firm shoe that has a lot to give, especially for this low price. The upper is beautiful. Guys, that's an adaptive shoe for you. It's one that transitions from a gross shoe to a butterfly. All right, guys, that is all for my running shoe definition lingo talk explained to you guys. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section down below. I would love to keep the conversation going down there. Hit that like button. It really does help the channel a lot. And I just want to say thank you to all the support you guys have been giving lately. It's been absolutely amazing to see the channel grow. Guys, it's so appreciated. I'll catch you on the next one. We will have the Clifton 7 review coming up on the next video. Stay tuned for that, and I'll see you then.